Welcome back to the Google Ads Lead Gen Show. My name is Michelle Kop from Level 28 Media.
And my name is Dean Hua from Sachi Studio.
And in today's podcast episode, we are going to be focusing all in on Google Ads for home contractors. So if you are in the space, you're a general contractor, you do HVAC, plumbing, painting, duct cleaning, you're a roofer, or even an architect, this episode is perfect for you. So let's go ahead and dive in with the first topic here. So let's talk about some of the big challenges and pitfalls that home contractors face when it comes to Google Ads and lead generation in general.
Sure. So first of all, I want to talk about non-Google Ads related factors because these do impact what we do as marketers. I think the first one is that working with home contractors in the past or even in the future, a lot of them are notoriously known for having really poor follow-up and customer service. And what I mean by that is a prospect will call, they get the voice message, and you don't call back until 4 or 5 hours later. That's really bad. Like, I can guarantee you, if they're looking at your ad, they're probably looking at two other ads as well. So they're shopping around naturally. So number one, if you intend to do Google advertising, highly recommend you have your front operation, your front office operation just down to a T, because if it's taking you 4 or 5 hours to get back to someone, just forget it. You're wasting too much money there. What sort of experience have you had with these types of businesses?
Very similar. I think that that's like the number one issue that I experience when I work with home contractors in general. Typically, the follow up system's not in place. So it'll take too long to follow up, or the person, the contractor's out in the field, and they're the ones that are assigned to answer the phone calls, but then they're too busy. So having a dedicated person to like in an office that's pretty much all their role is to set appointments and take phone calls would be the most ideal. And then on top of that is customer service. So beyond just answering the phone, showing up for the appointment, giving the estimate, but then also asking for the sale. I think a lot of these home contractors, when they don't go in with the mindset of, well, of course, everyone wants to sell, everyone wants to make money. But then in terms of asking for the sale, asking, and I wouldn't say like being aggressive, but in a way like trying to push for the sale that day or whatever, instead of just saying, oh, okay, like I'll let you get a couple more bids. Because we all know what happens when you let someone else get a hot client or a very hot lead get multiple bids. It's going to take them a while to get back to you, and it's going to be really hard to close them. What's your experience been?
Yeah, sort of as a corollary to this, I found the ones that have these sort of issues tend to be startups, like maybe under a
Mm-hmm.
couple years, or sole proprietors. I remember working with this one lady, really great woman. She had a startup HVAC business focused on selling and installing ductless mini split units in homes. And I really liked her. I liked her personality. We got along very well. I wanted her to succeed, but the biggest issue she had was she was not just the contractor, but she was a salesperson as well. And when she's out on the field, it would take her several hours before she can finally get back to the prospect. So that's something I'm worried about with smaller businesses, solo proprietors, or startups. Another thing to think about is that regardless of the niche you're in within home contracting, chances are you're probably competing in a very competitive space, regardless if you're plumbing, uh, painting, duct cleaning, roofing. A lot of these other businesses are also using Google Ads as well. So because you have more people competing within the Google Ads space within your local market, that raises ad spend for everybody. So everyone's spending more money competing within the same pool. That doesn't necessarily should prevent you from considering Google advertising, but it's just something to think about. On top of that, you're also having to compete with companies like Home Advisor and Angie's List that's also bidding on these same keywords and directing traffic to their website.
Yeah, what type of CPCs are you seeing on average, like across the board? If we're just making a generalization, and also just want to say for anyone listening or watching that the CPCs are going to vary based off of the general market that you're in and how competitive it is. But Dean, speaking from your experience, what are you seeing? I'll share what I'm seeing as well.
Off the top of my head, I think plumbers, like plumber near me or plumber XYZ city, you're looking anywhere from, I want to say $20 to $50 cost per click
Yeah,
for a
yeah.
mid market or major market. Roofing is the same, could be a little bit more depending on the type of roofing. Um, HVAC, that's really broad. I'm going back to what I did with a client on mini splits. I think that was anywhere from $10 to $30 for mini splits or ductless.
Yeah. So what I've seen is probably in the 25 to $50 range. Just like across the board, working with multiple different home contractors in the years that I've been doing this. So, you know, when it comes to running Google Ads, we've talked about this before, having a sufficient budget, because if you're not ready to spend, your budget's going to go out like that. So you need to really make sure that you have a sufficient budget in order to keep things going, so that you can keep collecting data and keep collecting leads and making the best decisions off of what's coming in. So that's key.
Yeah. So moving on, what other things should people look out for? Just a quick pro tip. I found that marketing automation software really helps a lot. For example, you just schedule an appointment. You want to make sure the prospect keeps the appointment. Make sure whatever CRM or software you're using is sending out reminders to the prospect, both via email, but more
Text.
importantly, through SMS that, hey, you have an appointment in 24 hours. And then 12 hours later, you have an appointment. And then 2 hours before the appointment, send another reminder. So I think little things like that helps a lot as well.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely the text. And then after you do the in-home estimate, if they don't sign right away, definitely get them in in a good follow-up sequence, because it's so easy to lose them after that, especially if they've been engaging with multiple other providers as well.
Yep, totally agree. Um, are there niches that's easier than others? I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think that they all have their own challenges for sure.
Yeah, I think they're all competitive. I mean, anything that's like a common service, like plumbing, HVAC, painting, they're all competitive. It's you want to make sure you hire a Google Ads agency that knows what they're doing and that's pretty savvy and understand the market. I don't claim to be an expert in every single business niche, but this is where I pepper my clients who have a lot of questions about their business. I'm really interested in knowing what the lifetime value of a client is. And I'll do some
Yeah.
paper napkin math where I'll take the ticket revenue, average ticket revenue, and compare that against the CPC and what I think I can convert at. And then that'll help me understand whether or not I can make money for this client.
Yeah, exactly. And just because a niche is competitive or more expensive, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's like hard. It just means that you just need more budget in order to get results. So that's really what it is. I audited a guy that owns a duct cleaning business. And the current agency that he was using at the time was saying, like, they were really freaked out about $25 CPCs. So instead of focusing on duct cleaning, which was their main service, they started focusing on like dryer vent cleaning, which was like a secondary or third, priority. And they barely even make money off of those services because the CPCs are cheaper. So I just thought it was kind of funny that, like, this agency decided to make a business decision for the client because the CVCs are cheaper. But I told the client, and he's now a client of mine right now, I'm not afraid of high CPCs. Just give me more money and we'll make magic happen.
Yeah, give me more money. Well, so I'm curious, what's the CPC for duct cleaning, or not the CPC, or like what's the ticket revenue for duct cleaning? I've never done that.
So it depends on the square footage of the house and how many HVAC systems they have. On average, it's anywhere from $500 to $1,000 for residential. But if you can get some really big commercial jobs, it could be like in the $5,000 range or more.
Oh wow, okay.
So they work with like nail salons and like doggy daycares and anywhere where, where the air gets really
Stuffy,
like
yeah.
stuffy and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. I didn't know much about duct cleaning until I started working with them, but I just thought it was really interesting how this agency that claimed to have experts decided to make a business decision for the client because the CPCs were too expensive.
Yeah, I mean that's really interesting. I think the business has to make the business decision, but they have to get feedback from the marketer, and the marketer has to make a marketing decision, but the marketer has to get feedback on the business from the business owner, if that makes any sense. So I
Yeah.
think both business and marketer have to like come together and figure out the best compromise, because that's what it's always like. That's what I tell my clients as well. I will say, even though I don't think there's any niche that's easier than others, the more I do stuff like this, the more I'm a big fan of picking up clients who work in smaller markets, because
Yeah, I
smaller
agree.
markets is less competition. You may not have a lot of competition. It could be just 3 or 4 others in a 20-mile radius, and that's great. I would love to help clients like that, because it's a lot better picking up those types of clients with
Yeah.
smaller budgets than big clients in major markets where it could be just too tough to convert. So
Yeah, I think we also have to go back and define what does easy actually mean. Does easy mean in terms of like generating leads, or does easy go into like actually converting leads into actual paid customers? Because if we're talking about converting leads into paid customers, then home contractors that work in emergency based niches, it's going to be a lot faster to close those, like a roofer when they're dealing with like a leaky roof, or like duct cleaning when someone's
yeah,
just about to move into a house and they need to clean out like the bad smell right away, versus let's say a general contractor where they're just someone's looking for a kitchen remodel. Oh, that's going to take forever for someone to make a decision. So I think that that's also something else you have to consider is the timeline of how long it's going to take from someone to convert. And I think that's why I wanted to bring up like what's the definition of the word easy. Is it easy
yeah,
to get leads, or is it easy to actually convert into a paid customer?
sounds good. Let's talk about actual Google advertising itself. Tips. So I think the first tip I would give is understanding keyword selection. I still see too many accounts, or once I'm given access by the client, I see too many accounts where they're putting too much emphasis on broad match and not enough on phrase match and exact match. And I think this just comes down to them not knowing what match types are. They simply just take whatever Google suggested them, put that in, and then obviously they're wasting money. Number two, negative keyword list libraries is really important here, especially in some of these niches like I wouldn't say plumbing and roofing. A lot of times people could be doing a search for your local competitor, which has a really good brand, just
Right.
because they've been in the space for 25 years. So you may be getting clicks from prospects doing a search for your competitor and not you. So they click on the ad, think it's your competitor, and then they mistakenly call you thinking it's your competitor. So it's really important to have a negative keyword list library where you're blocking out your competitors, as well as just like general research related keywords as well. I like to always say that when I work on accounts, I will be very proactive where we will upload a negative keyword list before the campaign even starts. Whereas many ad agencies, they they turn on the campaign and
Reactive.
they
Yeah.
wait for the keywords to start coming in before they can figure out what to block out. And if you do that, if you take a very reactive approach, you could be wasting a lot of money.
Hmm. A couple of other things. So I think, yeah, broad match in this space, it can be really, really dangerous. I'm not saying that broad match is the enemy, but if you're going to use it, you need to make sure you have a strong negative keyword list. I also think that when it comes to keyword selection, going after keywords that are exactly what you are, like, in the case of general contractor, plumber, HVAC technician, um, painting, contractor, stuff like that, exactly what you offer. In other cases, I've even found symptom based keywords working. It doesn't work for every single contractor niche, so I just want to warn you. But in the case of like a roofer, I have a leaky roof, that
Yeah.
type of thing. Those tend to convert pretty well as for us. But just wanted to mention that as well. Or for like emergency like restoration, that type of thing. Those symptom based keywords are going to typically generate good leads for you. And then what else do I want to mention?
Um, I have something. I'd say
Yes.
be wary of Google's artificial intelligence smart bidding strategies, such as primarily max conversion. I think one of the biggest mistakes that home contractors make is they put too much trust into Google's smart AI. As I always say, Google's smart AI isn't as smart as you think it is. It's just not that well developed yet. Maybe in 5 or 6 years, it may be. Um, the biggest mistake home contractors make in this space is they start a new campaign up and they automatically turn on max conversions, thinking, oh, well, it's called max conversions. It's going to get me the most conversions.
It's
But the
the
reality
default
is that,
setting.
yeah, that's the default setting. But the reality is it doesn't work that way because the way algorithm based bidding works is you have to have a certain number of conversions beforehand before you can turn that on. And because you have a new campaign, you're not getting any conversions anyway. So it's sort of a catch 22. Well, how do I get conversions or max conversions if I don't have any conversions? Well, the answer is you have to manually micromanage your bids, and that's what I do at my ad agency. We try to micromanage everything using manual CPC as the preferred bidding strategy. Once we've accumulated enough conversions in a 30-day cycle, then we can consider turning on max conversions.
Yeah. Especially at the cost per click that we're talking about, these are not cheap clicks. Every click actually matters. So it is really important to be micromanaging it. And, knowing a lot of home contractors, they don't have time to be managing managing their own Google Ads account. So having an expert or someone to watch over it and to help micromanage that aspect, especially because every click is worth so much, it's critical. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, moving on, landing pages. While you're watching this video, go do a search for roofing near me. I guarantee you one of the biggest mistakes that most of these Google ads make is they directed traffic to the homepage. As soon as I see that, that's a big red flag to me. Do you want to talk about landing pages and like how you go by
Yeah,
doing it and
absolutely.
its importance?
Absolutely. Why don't we just go over our landing page formula? We've already done a full length video on landing pages, so we'll drop that in the description below. But let's just go over our I guess like best practices and aligning the best practices with what we would do for general contractors or just home contractors. So what we need to do is first have a nicely designed landing page that is aligned with your brand. We need to have the phone number at the top right corner, or wherever that's visible. And of course, it has to be mobile friendly. Ideally, it should have a form: first name, last name, email, phone number, and how can we help you. And lots of pictures. I would say lots of before and after work, especially in this space, is going to be critical. And please, if you're going to be using stock photos, use stock photos that don't look like real stock photos. But because we want authenticity at the end of the day, authenticity sells. Having pictures of your team to humanize your company, and then also, I'd say a section on what makes you guys different from your competitors. And then what else? Testimonials. Anything else that you want to add to it?
I would say sprinkle the CTA, the call to action, several times throughout the flow of the page. Like, for example, if your goal is to have the client or the prospect to fill out the form, your CTA may say, get a quote, right, at the very top of the page. But then that's where a lot of people stop. They don't, maybe you should sprinkle that maybe 2 or 3 more times as the user scrolls down the landing page because they're constantly
Hmm.
being reminded. Or just have a sticky bar where you have
Hmm.
get a quote just at the top. And as someone scrolls, they keep seeing that.
It stays there.
You'd
Hmm.
be, especially when you're working with 5-figure ad spend budgets or more, you'd be really surprised as to what the conversions look like using little hacks like that. Yeah, big fan of before and afters because most of these niches, like painting, definitely want before and after. What else? Home building, before and after. Kitchen remodeling, home before and after. What else here? Other tips.
I think I would add something else. I don't know if you've tried this on your campaigns, but offers I found works pretty well in this space. Especially when we're looking at B2C, who doesn't want a good deal, right? So putting in some type of offer, whether it's like 10% off your duct cleaning or you know, with the HVAC, we'll throw in this type of thing with whatever, or some type of thing that's going to make someone feel like they're getting a good deal. So when they're evaluating you versus other people, then they could see the value that you're offering versus someone else.
Yeah, actually, another thing I want to touch on, going back to your suggestion about forms. I found in certain niches like roofing, which is a really high ticket um, business, a lot of roofing companies, they make the prospect fill out too many fields on the
Fields,
form. Like, for example, it's not just first name, last name, email, phone number, but it's all of that plus like what's your budget, what type of roofing are you looking for, and so on
what's
and
your
so forth.
address?
What's your address? And I understand why they do it, but you want to maintain a balance between just getting a quote versus pre-qualifying people as well. So something to be aware
Yeah,
of.
absolutely. I would say probably the most dangerous question to ask on a form is what's your address? Nobody wants to be putting that type of personal information. I think the most personal information that people would be willing to give is probably just their phone number and email, but address, I would not feel comfortable putting that because I don't want you guys to just show up at my house unannounced without even speaking to me.
Fair, fair. Anything else before we move on Google Ads
No,
tips?
I think that's it. I think, well, actually, one more thing. I think when it comes to the messaging and the copy on these landing pages, I can't tell you, we could probably just go to Google right now, pull up some landing pages and see that it's all SEO vomit and it's not really written for the
Yeah,
end consumer. So when you put together your landing page, you really need to think about writing it for the end consumer. What's the pain that they're dealing with? So in the case of duct cleaning, the end consumer is dealing with things being, it's really hard to breathe in their house. They moved into a house that has really heavy smell of smoke and they need that type of thing to be removed. So you really need to be writing messaging that's going to appeal to the end customer and not say, we're the best duct cleaning company in Las Vegas, because that doesn't really say anything. Everyone's saying
yeah.
that. So what can you do to attract people and agitate their pain? Do you have any other thoughts on the ad copy
No,
piece?
I think that's good. I would also say from a copywriting perspective, too many businesses and ad agencies write too much content for the landing page because a lot of people know what a plumber is. They know what a painter is. You don't have to sit there and write 500 words or multiple paragraphs on that. You could maybe be more concise and more punchy with your copy. Maybe you just need a few sentences here and there throughout the landing page, and that explains it all along with photos. So something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing too is when it comes to landing pages and copy, if you're ever stuck, we highly recommend ChatGPT as a great place to start to brainstorm and come up with some good catchy ideas.
Yep, it's not just a meme anymore. It actually really is helpful. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a plug and play tool. You still have to refine it, But if you're just stuck with, if you don't have, or if you're lacking content ideas or headlines and things like that, you may want to play around with ChatGPT and see what it spits out, and then finesse it accordingly. Speaking of ChatGPT, it gets used a lot for SEO. Let's talk about Google Ads versus SEO. Like, which is better, if at all? Like, what's your thought process? And then I'll chime in.
I think it just depends on how you view it. I think it's necessary to have both. SEO is the long game. It can take a very, very, very long time to rank for your niche in your specific area. So if you want to cut the line and jump right to the top of Google, PPC is going to be the best way to go about doing that. When I'm saying PPC, it's pay per click or Google Ads. So that's going to be your fast and easy way to jump to the top of Google versus SEO, which can take a long time and a lot of patience as well. But of course, there's pros and cons. With Google Ads, you're going to need a pretty good investment, especially because we're talking about a $25 minimum CPC in a mid-market competitive area. With SEO, you're not necessarily paying ad spend, but if you're going to do it right, you're going to hire a SEO expert that's going to be working in the background for months on end to try to get to rank. So do you have any other comments on that?
Yeah, I think time horizon is the biggest one. You talk to a lot of clients and they'll sit there and you tell them it'll take 6 to 12 months to start ranking. They're like, oh, okay, I'm fine with that. But when you're a couple months into the project, they start to panic already for whatever
Yeah,
reason. They start to
anxiety.
panic and they want to, yeah, anxiety, really. That's a good description. Um, they want to start pulling out already and you've just begun. So if you're a client like that, you should acknowledge that and maybe realize that you don't want to do organic SEO. Maybe you'd rather spend a little bit more money, assuming you have the budget, but spend more money on Google advertising for the first couple months. One of the great things I love about Google advertising, having done this for 8 years, is that it's money that makes money, meaning assuming you can get the advertising to work, revenue's coming in, you then take that revenue and you can reinvest it either more into more Google advertising or SEO or
Yeah,
operationally. Maybe you could hire an assistant part-time to help you take the load off of what you're doing, or just take the money and go on a vacation or something. But if you can do it right, it's money that makes money pretty quickly. Whereas with SEO, you do have to wait 6 to 12 months down the road, if
yeah.
assuming you can get it to work to begin with.
Yeah, the best analogy that I have with Google Ads versus SEO is Google Ads is pretty much like going to Disneyland, right? And there's like a huge line. Google Ads is like paying your way to cut to the front of the line without having to wait in those long lines in the heat, like all of
I
that
like that. Yeah.
craziness. But with SEO, you're starting from the back. You're going to have to wait 2 to 3 hours, well, to get to that front of the
Yeah.
line at Disneyland. But in the case of organic SEO, okay, good luck. 9 to 12 months. And then that's also assuming that you hired a really good SEO person that knows what they're doing, that's setting the right expectations and showing you what they're doing. Or else you're just completely wasting your time in terms of getting things going. And then you got to go hire a new SEO person. So Google Ads, if you want to move quick and fast and see results quicker. Organic SEO, yes, you don't have to pay for every single click, but you are paying for, or you don't have to pay for any clicks, but you are paying for someone to be doing that in the background. And if you're not paying for someone to do it, you're paying with your own time.
Yeah.
So,
Moving on, how about Google Ads versus third-party pay-per-lead services like Angie's or Home Advisor? What's the pros and cons here?
So yeah, we touched on this earlier when you mentioned these lead aggregators, Angie's, Home Advisor. A lot of times, what happens is these lead aggregators, when someone goes to these lead aggregator sites, and let's say they're typing in HVAC provider or something like that, or they select HVAC contractor from the list, and then you type in your zip code and your address, whatever, and then what happens is they go out and they find all the HVAC contractors in your area. and then they will sell you as the lead to them. So basically, you are not an exclusive lead to one. You are shared across a bunch of different HVAC contractors. So the challenge with third party pay per lead models is, even though what they sell you as a contractor, it might look attractive because it's like, okay, you only pay $15 a lead. Oh, that's super cheap. If I can convert this $15 lead, then I'm going to be way better off than Google Ads, because each click is already $25, and that's just a click. That's not even a lead. But the
Yeah.
challenge is that when you're using these pay per lead models, you're being shared, or you're sharing the lead with other people. So then you have to be on top of it to call, and
Beat the lead.
it
Yeah.
makes it a lot harder because the leads are not exclusive to you. Versus with Google Ads, they are exclusive to you to a certain extent, because some people might be shopping around multiple places on Google. But with these pay per lead models, don't get fooled thinking, oh, these leads are cheap, so therefore that's amazing. But what you're going to realize is you're not going to be able to close them
Yeah.
as much as you would like, because these leads are being shared. Any other thoughts
Yeah.
on that?
Yeah. I totally agree. Like if you're going to do home advisors or something like that, speed to lead is really important, and you need to be calling these prospects like within minutes. And by the way, if you're calling them within minutes, a lot of them will be pleasantly surprised because they're used to like home contractors that take hours to get back to you. So that makes a great first impression if you can
That
do that.
does.
Um, I will say, just anecdotally, some of the success I've seen with home advisors or home contractors who compete on home advisors, these are the ones who aren't bidding on like really big umbrella categories. They're really specific. Like, for example, if you can get really niche into certain services, you won't have as much competition. For example, home deck building. That's a very niche thing where there aren't as many competitors.
That's
So
a
if you
good
get more
point.
niche
Yeah.
into that category, I think you'll do better. Plus, it's more high ticket as well.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. So do we recommend it? We recommend it with caution. You can try it, but at the same time, like if we're choosing between Google Ads and pay per lead model, Google Ads is definitely the way to go, because these leads are exclusive to you.
How about Google Ads versus LSAs or local service ads? What's the pros and cons here?
Yeah, so I want to take a step back, because some of these people that are watching this, they might not know. They might know what LSAs are, but then they might be getting it. They might not also realize that it's also the same as Google Guarantee. So just in case that you are watching this, yes, sometimes I get people asking what's the difference. They're the same thing. So Google Guarantee is a program that you have to apply for. And essentially, it is a pay per lead model as well. And you can dispute the leads, which is a huge pro. But there's a couple things that I want to say in regards to Google Ads versus Google Guarantee or local service ads. Local service ads and Google Guarantee, it's not a direct replacement for Google Ads. Pretty much this program was like set up with Google to make it seem like you can set it and forget it, which you can to a certain extent. But there's really not a lot of strategy that goes into it. You can't write ad copy that's going to appear at the top of Google. Essentially, you just really need to make sure that you have really, really strong reviews. And typically what I found with LSAs is it can get really expensive. It can get expensive, for sure. But there's nothing that you can really say in the ad itself, because it's already just like pulling just your company name and just where you're located. And you don't really have a lot of control. You just set a budget, and then Google will then go try to find people in your space that's looking for you. Sometimes I do see it as a hit or miss. It might not get someone looking for the exact service that you offer. So then you've, wasted your time, but then you can also dispute it. So that's also a good thing. So the challenge with LSAs or Google guarantees, it's hard to scale. If you're seeing great results and you want to pump more money into it, you can try, but it's really up to Google to then decide, how it's going to distribute you as a as a provider to other people. So I say that it's a supplement to Google Ads, not a direct replacement. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say if you've done regular search ads with Google and you need more volume, I think you should look at LSAs or Google Guarantee. Number one. Number two, just to reiterate what you just said, it's a very easy interface, far easier to understand than using Google's paid search ads. I actually have a client in a plumbing space. I was shocked as to how well they're doing. Like they are crushing it within their
On
market
LSAs?
on LSAs. Like I took a look at the dashboard and everything. It was
Yeah.
amazing how well they're doing. And they're a small
Yeah.
startup. They're under 6 months.
Yeah.
Um, but the reason why they're, as a big caveat, the reason why they're crushing it is they're in a very small town, which goes back to what I just said. I would love to take on clients who are in like small markets because their local competitors probably just aren't as savvy with their digital advertising as they are. So if you're like one of the few businesses who's using search ads or LSAs, I think you could do really well with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we could do a whole video on just like LSAs in general too, maybe in the future, but definitely just wanted to touch that, LSAs is not a direct replacement, but it's pretty powerful. So do we recommend it? Absolutely. But you're gonna hit a ceiling eventually with it. And then yeah,
Yeah,
you'll have to also diversify. Um
totally
but
agree.
yeah, that's
Offers? How do you feel about giving offers, if at all?
Oh, so we touched on this on the landing page.
Okay.
I think it's going to work really well for B2C. Not so much B2B. In terms of a home contractor. Just because everyone likes getting a good deal. So I think it's
Yeah.
definitely something worth testing, and seeing how that works out for you. How about you?
Yeah, actually I forgot you did talk about it earlier. My brain just completely whoosh. Uh, yeah, I got nothing else to add. I do think it's worth split testing. If you're going to do a split test on offer versus no offer on the landing page, make sure you're spending a good amount of money. Otherwise, the metrics may not be as relevant. And if you do have an offer, make sure it's a really good, attractive offer, not just like 5% off
5%?
or something. Unless it's a really big ticket item,
Yeah.
but 5%
Yeah.
on like $100 sale, it's not a big deal. Yeah,
Oh,
nothing else
okay.
to add.
I actually wanted to touch on one last thing, but before we end this podcast episode, and it's this fallacy that a lot of these home contractors have in general about people that like live in more affluent neighborhoods being able to, just because people have the money and they live in affluent neighborhoods doesn't mean that they're going to be willing to actually like pull the trigger right away. I don't know if you've experienced this, but in speaking with a lot of contractors, they tend to avoid more affluent neighborhoods. They like to go for neighborhoods that are more like average,
Middle
versus
class.
more affluent ones, because the affluent neighborhoods tend to be like really tighter on their purse strings, uh,
Really?
versus the other ones in terms of converting. Yeah, have you had that experience with home contractors or just in general?
No, not really. I will say it is a fallacy to think that um, they'll convert better because sometimes it could be there may not be that many neighborhoods that's well off in your market,
Yeah,
and
I
you might be
definitely
better
think
off.
it's a fallacy.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
might
for
be better
sure.
off with just
So,
the working middle class.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So when you're doing your location targeting, don't just focus on like higher income households. Don't just focus on the bigger the more affluent neighborhoods. I would say to diversify, and then, because if this is new to you, really see, what's generating you the best quality in terms of like, paid customers coming out of it.
Yep, sounds good. So I think that wraps up this episode of Google Ads for Home Contractors. I guess we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.